Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to make a video just to show how I got my Behringer X-Touch to work pretty seamlessly with FL Studio. This has taken me a lot of time and a lot of research to get this to work, so my hope is that I can save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. So my goal here is to keep this video as short as I can so that you can stop watching this and get back to working on some music. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is check the firmware on the actual Behringer X-Touch and make sure we have the most recent version. Chances are it's not going to be, so I'm going to show you how to update it. First thing, you're going to hold the display button and turn it on. Here you'll see the version that you currently have. When I first turned this on, it said 1.15, so obviously it was pretty behind. So now I just updated it. It's at 1.22, so let's go through how to do that. So you'll go to Behringer's X-Touch website. I'll leave a link for this in the description. You'll go over to Product Library, hit Software, and then once you click X-Touch, it'll automatically download that folder. From there, you're going to open up your downloads and go to, it'll download as a zipped file. So you'll right click, hit Extract All, and then that'll create this file. Which will have this inside of it. This logo won't be there yet because you don't have the software that you need for this yet, but I'm going to show you how to do that next. So the next thing you're going to do is go to MIDIOX.com. I know this website looks a little sketchy, but this is the website that Behringer recommended. For Mac users, your process is going to be a little different. You're going to use a program called SysEx Librarian. And I'll put a link in the description to a video that shows how to use the installer and how to use this program as well. But everything else for the most part should be the same for both Mac and PC. I'm using a PC, so I'm going to be using MIDIOX. So you're going to click this link here, and that'll download the installer. From there, you'll run the installer like you normally would. Hit next on everything. I know you'll read every word of it because everyone does. And then you'll have a few options. There will be a personal use option and a commercial use option. You're going to do the personal use, and I'll also include a link to a video on this installer just in case you have any issues installing it as well. Once you have MIDIOX installed, you'll open it up. This isn't going to work exactly the same because I've already done it, but if you watch the link that I put in the description, that'll show you how to do it from scratch, but I'll walk you through it real quick. What it would look like. So you'll first hit options, you'll hit MIDI devices, and then you'll click X-Touch and then X-Touch down here. Once you do that, you'll hit OK. Since I've already done it, it's not going to work for me, but you would hit OK here, and then you'll come over to View, SysEx, and then File, Send SysEx file. Once you click this, obviously it's not going to work for me, but once you click that, it's going to open up a window to search for a file, and you want to go grab this file. And now it will have these two notes here. You'll double click that, and that will start the update on the firmware for the X-Touch. As it's updating, this should start to count up. And as it loads on the screen, you'll notice that this loads with it. It usually doesn't make it all the way to 100%. Sometimes it'll like make it to 98. But once it's completed on your actual computer screen, that means it's done. You can close out of MIDIOX, and then you can turn off your X-Touch. Now, when you turn it back on, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to hold display, hit the switch on the back, and it should be the current version. Right now it's 1.22. It may be different by the time you do this, but either way, once you do that, it should be the current version displayed here on the X-Touch, and then you can turn it back off. Up next, we need to get the Python files for the X-Touch to work with FL Studio. So you're going to come to this website here, which I'll again leave a link in the description. It may take you to this page. This person's page is the one who has these files. You'll click X-Touch FL Studio. It should look like this. From here, you're going to click Code, Download Zip. Once you download it, it should again download a zipped file, which will be this one, X-Touch FL Studio Master. You're going to right click and hit Extract All. Once you do that, you'll open up the extracted file, and these files should be in there. There may be more or less depending on when you watch this video, because they're always kind of trying to find new codes for this to work. So, but it should look something like this, and there should be some files, some Python files in this folder. The next thing you're going to do is search for your Mackie control unit folder within FL Studio. So this is the chain that you're going to follow. Feel free to pause this video if you need to, but essentially go into your documents, go into the image line folder, go into FL Studio, settings, hardware, Mackie control unit. These files will not be in that folder yet. That's where you're going to come back into this file that you just downloaded, highlight these, and drag them into the Mackie control unit folder. This is what FL Studio is going to use to help control the X-Touch. So now these are in here. We can get rid of these and open up FL Studio. Once we have it open, you're going to turn on the X-Touch. Your X-Touch will not look like this yet. I've already done this and got it set up, but it will soon. So you're going to go to Options, MIDI Settings. Now, since we moved those files into the Mackie control unit folder, these options should be here. So you should have X-Touch and MIDI out 2, and then in your output, and then X-Touch and MIDI into and your input. So definitely take some time. You're going to want to make sure your screen looks exactly like this. So first things first, we're going to highlight X-Touch in the output section. Make sure this is Send Master Sync is on. I'm not sure why this works, but it does. So just don't ask questions. You're going to set X-Touch port 102, and then MIDI out 2 you're going to set to port 103, and also make sure this is on. And then we're going to come down to input, click X-Touch, make sure it's enabled, and on controller type, when you click this, there should be the option X-Touch user. Click that. I've already done it. And then this one is going to be for your extender. If you have an X-Touch extender, I don't have one, but if you want to be an overachiever and go ahead and get it set up, I did, but this will be for if you have an extender. You'll do the same thing, click on it, make sure it's enabled, make sure it's set to port 103, and then click on Behringer X-Touch extender user. Also make sure these are set to 102 and 103. From here, you should be almost ready to go. So you're going to X out of this, close out of FL Studio so that it doesn't crash, and then turn this off. Now, open FL Studio back up, turn this back on, and it should look something like this. Sometimes it's a little glitchy. Once you do a couple touches here, it'll fix it. I have a template set up. I would highly recommend, if you don't have a template set up in FL Studio, that you create one. It just helps with workflow and really helps you to bring out the most that you can do with this X-Touch. I plan on making a video here shortly in the future on how I made my template. It's more geared towards like singer-songwriter style music, and I've created it to where it's really easy. If I need more tracks for, say, an electric guitar, if I need 3 or 4 electric guitar parts, I can just grab blank channels and pull them into my template. So it's super easy, and like I said, if you don't have one, it'll definitely help you bring out the most in this thing. So now let's go over what everything does. All right, so first things first, we are in FL Studio now. I do have 2 monitors set up, so I have my mixer screen on one monitor and my playlist view on the other monitor. So this still works either way, but I just will be switching back and forth between monitors here. So right now, looking at the mixer view, the left side of this X-Touch is pretty self-explanatory. All of these do exactly what you would think. So your encoders, if you look at channel 1 right now that I'm working on, I have this selected now. This encoder will pan left and right, pretty straightforward. If you decide, later on that you don't like something that you panned, just click the encoder, and that'll center it again. The record button arms and disarms that specific channel. Solo will obviously solo out that channel. Mute will mute that specific channel, and then selects that specific channel. And now with this coding that we've set up as well, these faders are touch sensitive. So whichever one you touch, it will select that channel on the mixer view, and then you can also move it like it should. And then if you want to set it back to 0, you reset it, it'll slide back up to 0. Another cool thing with the faders that you can do is you can do different kinds of automation. So it just makes it a lot more natural, especially if you're doing like volume swells or anything like that, to use the automation rather than trying to grid it out. It just makes it sound a little bit more natural. But yeah, this whole side is pretty straightforward. It works the way it should. This side from here over is a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure what everything does yet, and I also am pretty sure that there's some things that just don't do anything. But this alone, this side right here, was well worth the money that I spent on the X-Touch just to have the tactile sensation to really like feel like you're touching the music. Was well worth it. And so this is all just kind of a bonus over here. So I'll go over what I know does what, and then I'm still kind of learning. So as you guys learn how to use this, and if you start learning things that maybe I don't cover, definitely leave it in the comment section and help me out and help others out as well. So first things first, this encoder assign row, I don't do a whole lot with this. I leave it on track. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what any of these do. A lot of these buttons don't really do what they say they do, so I kind of leave this row alone. The display button here, you basically have 3 options. So you have the vertical meter mode, a disabled meter mode, and a horizontal meter mode. The vertical meter mode is kind of cool because the bottom half of the screens tell you what channel you're on, and the top half tells you basically what you're doing and the most recent thing you did. So I'll show you, for example, as I move down this list, it's just saying what I'm hovering over. If I do something like, say, I get rid of the separator, it'll say menu separator. That's the most recent thing that I did. I'm going to put that back. So that can be useful, but I actually find myself, for the most part, using the horizontal meter mode just because I like having the name of the channel and the number of that channel. To me, it's just one more thing to keep me organized, and I know exactly, like, okay, this is channel 3. I know that's my vocal bus. I know this is channel 6. I know that's my acoustic guitar bus. So definitely do whatever works for you. That's just what I prefer. I'm going to put a few things, just a few blank patterns in here, just to kind of have a few things on the grid here in the playlist view, just to show you kind of what some of this does. So for this button over here, kind of has 2 different purposes. I only really use one. So the top button here is really just is where you're at in the song. So 4 seconds, 5 seconds, so on. It's just the time that you're in the song. The bottom portion of this button gets a little bit more specific of where you're at within the bar. So if you pause it right now, you can get really precise with where you're at within that specific bar. So if you're doing some dissecting of some audio or something and you need to know exactly where something happens, you can get pretty specific. I tend to just leave it on the actual time of the song, but you never know. Moving on down to the functions row. This one, there's only one that I really use, and it's F8. I'm not really sure that these really do anything, but F8 actually is pretty useful. So if you hit this, it brings up all different kinds of tools. For example, let's say you want to put a time marker. You can label that, let's say you want to put where the vocals come in. So you can say start vocals, and that's where your vocals could come in, or whatever. But that can be pretty useful. So F8 is really the only one I use here. As far as modify, automation, and utility groups, there's only a handful that I use here as well. So if you click right, that'll bring up your channel rack. That's all that does. If you hit cancel, that'll close it out. Cancel will also close out the current window that you have open. So let's just say you have a bunch of stuff open, piano roll, channel rack. Hit cancel, cancel. It'll close whatever the current window is. Another useful one is enter. That'll just maximize or shorten the current window that you have open. So let's say you have piano roll open and you need to see something going on in the playlist view. Hit enter. You can see what's going on. Bring it back up and cancel to close it out. So those are really the only ones that I use. Save does exactly what it says. It'll bring up a save window. Undo undoes the last thing that you did. So really just right, and these four are the only ones that I use in this whole group. Up next we have the transport row. There's only a few that I know exactly what they do here too. So with the cycle button, if you hold cycle and then use the jogger wheel, however far you scroll it, it will create a loop for that section. And then if you hit cycle again, it'll get rid of the loop. Maybe. There we go. And you can also do that with the right click and drag as well, and then hit cycle. That'll get rid of it. Another one, this one's pretty straightforward. Click. This will turn your click on and off. Pretty handy, just if you need to turn it on to make sure something's in check in time. You can turn it on, turn it off. This one, I don't know when I would ever use it, but I do know what it does. So up here in the next to the play and stop buttons, this solo button over here just switches between pattern and song. Not really sure when I'd ever use it, but I know what the button does. Down here, these all work exactly how you would think. This fast forwards, this stops, this plays. You can also fast forward and rewind while it's playing. The record button arms FL Studio to record and turns it off. The jogger wheel kind of has a couple different functions. So if you're in the playlist view here and you use the jogger wheel, it'll jump bar to bar. If you hit scrub and then use the jogger wheel, you can zoom in and out in the playlist view, which can be pretty handy if you're looking for just different things within an audio file or whatever. And then scrub, hit it again, that'll change it back to just scrolling bar to bar. If you use the jogger wheel in the mixer view, it'll just go track to or channel to channel, which can be handy if you need to scroll through something pretty quick. Moving over here to the bank buttons, so you have a fader bank and a channel bank. These are super handy and make this pretty fun. So I'm going to mess with some of these just to kind of give you an idea. Let's just pull some of these around. And I'm going to bank over, mess some of these up. Okay, so the fader bank is going to essentially bank these channels 8 channels at a time. So if I hit fader bank, so I have 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, and you get the picture. And then down here, the channel bank goes 1 at a time. So it's 1 through 8, 2 through 9, 3 through 10, and so on. The one fader that I don't really like what it does right now, so I don't ever use it, is this main fader over here. So what it does, I'm going to switch back to the playlist view. So what it does is controls the master output of FL Studio, which I don't really like. I mean, I don't really know when I would ever use that. And another kind of con of that is when you reset the output of FL Studio, it doesn't reset this fader. So I tend to really just not touch that one. The only real button I use out of this row sometimes is the outputs button. And let's say you're just really deep in a song, you got 80 channels for some reason, you're just making the greatest song of all time, and you need to get back to, you know, the first set of channels really quick, hit outputs, it'll set your left fader as the master, and you're back to the start. Okay, and last but not least, we have the little directional arrows here. In the playlist view, it's pretty straightforward. It'll scroll you left and right, up and down, and then in the mixer view, it will move you channel to channel. And if you use the up and down buttons, it'll jump you 4 channels at a time. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, it's not perfect by any means. A lot of these buttons, either I don't know what they do yet, or they're not integrated enough with FL Studio yet to have a function. So as you guys, again, as you learn this, feel free to leave comments for us, for everyone else, and help us learn this as we go. And hopefully the more people start working on the coding for this, the better this will get. But I would already say this is worth every penny that I spent on this, just to have that real tactile sensation of working with the music. So that's it. I hope this was helpful, and I really hope this just helps you improve your workflow within FL Studio and just makes it more fun. I'm a musician, so obviously I have to do a little self-plug here. I do have music on Spotify and iTunes, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to music. If you just type in my first and last name, you'll find me. I'm going to get a video put up on the template that I made to use in FL Studio just to improve my workflow, and hopefully that'll help you as well. So we'll see you next time.